In today's video, I'm going to help you find a niche to sell on Etsy. To make this easy, I'm going to break this into 5 steps. The first step is going to be determining what type of product you want to sell. Once we decide on that, I'll help navigate you through finding that product line. From there, we'll dive into the category to make sure it's not too saturated and you can still make money. After that, we will talk about margins to ensure that you can continuously grow with that product. Finally, I'll go over the variations for your target audience so that you can start selling today. So if this is something that you're interested in, make sure you watch this video all the way until the end. These 5 steps are super important for success on Etsy. Now, if you're new to this channel, my name is George McConnell. I started my business with just $100, and last year I made over $1.2 million on Etsy. Each week I launch new videos teaching you the different strategies on how you could do the same. From my time working at Samsung as a data analyst, understanding how consumers think and shop, to opening up multiple Etsy stores, the things that I teach in my videos is what I personally learned throughout my journey. These lessons will save you time and put you in that right direction so that you don't make the same mistakes that I did. So if you're ready to learn, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you've been following me, you know I don't like to waste your time, so let's get into this. Step 1 is determining what type of product you want to sell. There are 3 main types of products that are sold on Etsy. You have physical items, you have print on demand, also known as POD, and digital items. There's also a 4th option, which is vintage. However, it is a very unique niche and not many people actually get into it, so we're not going to discuss that in this video. So now let's break down the pros and cons of each one of these different items. With physical items, you have complete control over the quality, as well as how fast that item is shipped to your consumer. Also, as you grow, you could buy these items at wholesale, which allows you more profits. The negative of this, though, is that you have to have the items on hand. So the items need to be stored somewhere. Now, starting off, that may be your living room, your garage, spare room. Either way, you need access to them because it's a physical item that you personally would have to ship to your consumer. In addition to that, you have to think about how much money you have available before going this route because you have to have these items on hand. The next option is POD, which stands for print on demand. Companies like Printify have third-party vendors that will create the items for you, and then Printify uses a drop shipping company that will ship that item to your consumer. This is great and makes things easy because you don't have to handle the items yourself and you don't have to store them in your home. However, you do have to pay for these products in advance, so as soon as a consumer orders, you have to pay for them. And then, in many cases, you have to wait for the money to come from Etsy. So just keep that in mind. The third option is digital items, such as graphics or templates. Now, the one advantage with this is that you only have to create the item one time, and you can sell it to thousands of people. The time that you invest in making this item is all the work that you have to do. The downside of this, though, is that they don't bring in great margins and they don't bring in a lot of money. So you'll have to sell a lot of them. And we'll talk about that later on. So this is the starting point because you need to know what type of product you want to start selling before we can move on to the next step. Going into step 2, it's choosing the product that you want to sell. Now, many YouTubers confuse you as to exactly what a niche is. They advise you to sell everything related to your passion. Now, while I agree, you should sell something that you're passionate about. However, this is not the way to go about selecting a niche. For example, in one video I saw, they said if your passion is camping, they suggested selling everything for camping. Please, do not do this. I want you to think of your Etsy shop as an aisle in a store. You are not the entire store. You do not need everything. You are just an aisle. As a consumer walks through Etsy, the store, they will go through the different aisles, which is your shop. I want you to think about that for a moment. When you go through Walmart or Target, you do not see shoes next to water bottles. You won't see journals next to shirts. Even if you go into a specific store that is niche minded, like Dick's Sporting Goods, you won't see the items side by side. You'll see balls where the balls are. You'll see clothes where the clothes are. Each item has its own section. And this is how you should decide how your store is set up. So you're going to determine your niche by looking at what product you want to sell, not the category. The category will have products inside of it. For example, if your category was apparel, you need to decide whether you want to sell shirts, hats, or shoes. If you are selling in kitchenware, which is the category, you can then decide on what product you want to sell: table runners, cutting boards, or aprons. You do not want to put all of these items in your store. So your store should reflect this, and you only have those specific products, not all of them. This will also help you later on when I go into targeting your audience. Now going on to step 3, you need to determine if the market is saturated. Once you determine that this is the product that you want to sell, you need to make sure that you can make money selling it. So for this, I like to use tools like Everbee to analyze the competition and see how many listings are on Etsy. I'm going to use pots or planters as an example. I talked about this in one of my recent videos and how to sell this product. I really hope that I'm pointing to the right spot because last time I did it, it was on the other side. The keyword that we're going to use is pots. This has 245,000 listings, which actually isn't bad at all. I want to also point out that this is not the main determining factor. There are many niches that may look oversaturated based on the amount of listings that there are. However, you could still make money in them. The next thing you want to look at is how many new shops are making good money. I consider any shop under 12 months a new shop. For this example, this shop just launched 4 months ago and is already making roughly $8,500 in gross each month, which, by the way, is pretty accurate. I already went through and I looked at the store, and most of the items that they are selling is large, and that large pot sells for $55. So what does this mean? This means that there's still a lot of potential for growth in this category with that product. If new stores can make this sort of money, it shows you could still take market and get it from those large companies. So if 5 companies own that market and this little company comes in and grabs a little bit, there's still room for you to do the same. Moving on to step 4 is one of the most important things, which is margins. You need to figure out how much money you will make on this product before you begin selling it. This includes the cost of the item, Etsy fees, shipping, marketing, and any other expenses. This is crucial because if you're not going to make any money, there's really no point in selling that product. I would advise that you strongly aim for nothing under 20% net margin. Net is the money that's earned after all expenses. If you can get higher than 20% and get into the 30, 35, or even 40%, you are golden. And there are little tricks that you can do in order to achieve those, which I actually talk about in some of my other videos, and I'll leave the links to those videos in the description below. So why are margins so important? And why do I stress them in every single video? The higher the margin, the more money in your pocket. And anything below 20% is really not worth the trouble. When you have a low margin, you begin to start chasing after the money. You're always playing catch up. And this is not good. So unless you're selling, say, digital items, which usually does yield under that 20%, then there's no point in selling the item. Now, why would digital items be different? The reason is because what I said earlier in the video. You only have to make that item one time. Then you can sell it thousands of times over. So your only expense is the time that it takes for you to make that item. But with products, whether it's physical or POD, you have to spend the money for each sale. So if you don't get over 20% margin, I want you to just go back to step 2 and start over. Remember, this is not a race. You're in this for the long run. So if this takes you a day, 3 days, or even a week to try to figure out what to sell, that's okay. There is no reason to rush, because rushing will lead to mistakes, and mistakes will lead to loss of money. Now on to step 5, the last step, which is research and your audience. Once you've determined the product, remember, not the category, the variations that you put on that item will determine your target audience. This is super important and determines that success of your store. You need to know your audience and only sell items that appeal to that demographic. You cannot target every single person. You cannot put items that a grandmother would want to purchase next to items that a 20-year-old is going to purchase. Ask yourself, would your grandmother go and shop for clothes in, say, Forever 21? How about would she wear sweatpants that say juicy on the butt? Probably not. So, if your target audience is mothers and grandmothers, you need to make sure that your items cater to them. And this is how you determine what variations and designs to put on your products. Once you fully grasp your target audience, the sky is really the limit. This makes everything much easier, from your SEO to creating different designs and launching things on Etsy. Once you know what to sell, you can make endless amounts of money. So I hope that this video helped you understand how to find a niche and how to launch it on Etsy. Remember, this is not a race. If you get lost, go back to step 1 and start over. I understand that you want to hurry up and sell something, and you want to get it online as fast as possible. But it's very important that you launch an item that will be successful. And these 5 steps will help you do that. If you have any questions, any comments, please leave them below. You know I love to hear from you. And as always, thank you for watching. Talk to you soon.